I'm almost done with history now. I have one semester left of it. I think this video is going to be more of a sequel, kind of, in the same vein of the I'm done with math. But it's going to be, I think, a lot less somber because I think, as seen in that video, I had a lot of conflicting thoughts and a lot of weird feelings to kind of comprehend what I was dealing with being finished with math. Um, and I do want to just say very quickly that I really appreciate all of the support. Every single comment was very nice to read and it was very helpful in kind of grounding myself with those feelings. I feel like it's very easy when you're finishing a big step in your life to get lost, and I feel like a lot of those comments help me kind of ground myself, at least maybe not even as a student who is graduating, but as a person um, who's graduating or who has finished a big part of their life. It really, every single comment really meant a lot, and I really appreciate it. But this history video is going to have a different tone, kind of, because I'm not done with history. I'm not done it yet. And I feel like there's a very big chance that I continue it in the future to some degree. I know that I have one semester left. I'm in this last semester, and I have one history class that I'm doing right now, being my big research seminar, basically. I'm going to get into what that means a little bit later, but just to describe it, I've taken a lot of classes. I've taken 9 other history classes, ranging in a variety of locations. I specialized, kind of accidentally, in U.S. history. Specifically, I did a couple classes in the Civil War, so that's kind of my big thing. I've looked at the economic history of America, but then I looked abroad, and I have a concentration in transnational history. So I have a specialization in how different nations interact with each other, which has played into what my research seminar is. I think this video is going to have a different tone because I'm not done yet. I still have to do it. I technically have not finished my history degree yet. Um, but it's still weird to think about that I'm in the home stretch. Because last semester I did a paper workshop, like a research workshop, where the entire semester we discussed, looking at different sources and how to analyze those sources and how to construct a paper, how to do your own original research, as well as like through the lens of the actual topic which we were studying, which was, in my case, I looked at revolutions. Um, and so this research seminar has kind of grown from that. Um, I guess I can just get into it now and not later. Basically, I'm doing an entire research seminar on Latin American relations, specifically with the United States. And so, what that looks like in a class aspect is every single week we choose a different country and we read the entire history of it in regards to their development and then how they interacted with the United States. Like this week is Cuba. Last week was, I want to say, last week I think next week is Guatemala. This week is Cuba. Last week, I'm not entirely, last week was Panama because we talked a lot about the canal, and I guess in that through Panama we talked a little bit about Colombia, but I know Colombia is a different week altogether. And through that we generate smaller research questions that we would like to look at within that country, and then after we read through enough nations, we eventually create our own research, which is from any country, any time period that we wanted to, just something to delve into. So it's, we all came to the class with our own broad ideas of what we'd want to research. Like specifically, I wanted to look at political relations between the U.S. and Cuba. That's changed since I've started researching. Like Cuba's still very interesting, but there's still a long way to go from that. And I think with history, it's kind of, when I'm saying like I'm finishing up history, I feel like with this, it's much more likely that it is a temporary halt on doing history. Because I said in math that I'm not going to pursue a graduate degree in math. I don't think I have the capabilities or the facilities. And again, some of those comments helped me realize that maybe if I applied myself to do X, Y, and Z, if I stopped having that thought process, it could be easier. And I agree. And I think that's something I can definitely look into, get into, such as with self-studying and looking into certain programs that could help me, because it would be interesting because I do love math. History, though, I think I'm a lot more open-minded because I think, I before this year started, before my senior year started, I was prepared to apply to graduate programs immediately in history. I was going to apply to many PhD programs. and I was gonna choose either American history, because that's something I was really, I think I've specialized in, like American history, Civil War history specifically, or I was gonna do history of science, history of mathematics, because I took a course on that. My university has one of the leading, or had one of the leading researchers in the history of mathematics. There's a lot of good universities around the country that have a history of mathematics program. Some of them are in the math department, which would mean I'd have to take graduate level math classes, and some of them are in the history department, which means I would just take different types of history classes. And both of those were very intriguing options, and I thought long and hard about it, because my options, my three options were basically graduate degree, industry, or Peace Corps. Peace Corps is a whole different thing. I haven't even, that's a whole different thing. But I think as last semester went on more and more, and applications were due around like winter, basically winter's when they were due. I decided that going straight into grad school probably wasn't for me, which means that, at least for right now, this history class is the last one that I will be taking in the near future. I leave that door much more open than I did with math. I think it's not very likely, but it is likely that I could go back after I, have a couple years in industry, having a job, basically having a job that is applicable with my degrees, to go back and finish grad school, or to start and finish grad school with a history. But that, I think, is further down the line. I think that like small hope of doing that has kind of kept me from feeling the same sort of emotions that I felt when I was talking about math, because I think math is a lot more open and shut case. And it's also, this history question is a lot more open-ended because I'm still in history. I still have a seminar to do. I still have an entire research paper to do, and I hopefully get it published. It's being, a 30-page research paper, roughly, at minimum, a 30-page research paper about something U.S. and Latin American relations. And so, like, for example, when we do our readings, we're told to bring in a research question, a smaller one for each of, or not for each of the readings, but each bulk of readings. And so it's like any of those could be interesting to me, such as I talked about in one of the weeks, Latin American involvement in the U.S. Revolution. That was still too broad, so I talked about Cuban espionage within the U.S. Revolution, because that was super important. And then last week I talked about the U.S. implementing biopower within the Panama Canal Zone. And so it's like stuff like that where it's really, I get deep into the nitty gritty, is really keeping my motivation up for history. And I think it's going to keep my motivation up throughout the semester, because it's going to be doing a lot of original research, a lot of reading primary sources, both in English and in Spanish, which will be a fun challenge. Long hours at the library, going up to different libraries throughout the state. And that's going to be exciting. I think it's very much keeping me upbeat about this, because I don't have much left to do. I have 2 classes left, but I'm not finished yet, and I think that's good, and it's keeping me grounded as a student. I think I'm excited to try and take that next step. I'm worried about what could come of it, but I'm very excited to try and eventually take that next step. But even if I end up not taking that next step, I think it's very I think this is ending history. If I never took another history class after this semester, I think it ends on a lot higher of a note. I think it's also, history is a lot more accessible in the public eye than math is to research. Like, I can always keep up with history. You can see right there, some of those books are history books. I have an entire shelf over there full of history books. I have an entire shelf at my house full of history books, and a lot of them I haven't read yet. And so I think it's consuming that type of media is very helpful and can easily proliferate a history learning experience. Sorry for that pause. There's a train that went by. I love where I live. But yeah, as I was saying, the learning history, I think, outside of school is a lot easier. I think the materials are a lot more accessible, which makes me a lot more optimistic, because I have a lot of history books that I haven't read already. I have some books from my history classes that I want to read again. I need to update a tier list. I made a tier list I think a year ago at this point, with some of my favorite books that I've read for my history classes, and I think that needs to be updated because I've definitely read some bangers since. But I think that's where it is that history is a lot more open ended, and I think history is much more accessible in the free space to learn, especially when you have the resources available to you, like I do, having a university account and having the access that my university provides me to access so many articles and books written by scholars. So when I say I'm almost done with my history degree, I'm not scared as I am with math. I think there's definitely avenues to which I can do to keep history in my life, such as doing my graduate degree down the line. And if I do a graduate degree, you're damn sure you'll hear about it right here. And even if I don't, there's still a ton of resources that I can do and a ton of resources that I can use and take advantage of to keep myself always learning, always active in that very special historical community. But as of right now, I'm nearly done with it. I have one seminar left, which is a research paper, roughly 30 pages at least. And mine will be about Latin American relations with the United States. I don't have a specific topic yet. It's only been a couple weeks. Some of the things I am interested in looking more into is what I mentioned a little bit earlier with the United States medical interventions in the Panama Canal Zone. I haven't looked too much into it. I do have some experience with it from my pandemics seminar that I took, which is also a U.S. history course, talking about implementations of biopower and colonial medicine, which I think both apply in the Canal Zone, specifically in the early 1900s. That's for another video. I'm really putting myself with a lot on my slate for in another video. We can do that, assuming that I still make videos after this. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I have one history class left. That's what it is. It's a research seminar. And I think while finishing up math felt much more hollow, I think this feels optimistic. This feels like it won't be the last time I see history, because I don't think it will. I think I'm going to have many more experiences with history in the future, whether it be in an academic setting or just in my own free time. I think it's a lot more accessible. And I'm not worried that I'm going to lose my connection to history, like I might lose my connection to math. But all in all, that's it. I'm not done with history yet. I hopefully plan to make some other videos in the future, discussing maybe more at length my research project when I actually have a topic, discussing what math has taught me, discussing what history has taught me, and also ranking all my favorite history books that I've read. But until then, yeah, I'm nearly done with history. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it.